Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to your Friday episode of Locked On Canucks. Thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen of the day, albeit a little late in the day today, of course. And we are free and available on all platforms. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Canucks-Flyers game yesterday and setting up the Canucks-Oilers game over the weekend. And look, the Canucks are having it's been a mixed bag, to say the least. This last week in particular has been it has been the kind of week that can really challenge your expectations of a team. I, of course, said at the beginning of the year that I felt the Canucks are in the division that they're playing in are good enough to potentially finish second in the Pacific. But right now, I am not seeing those kinds of results on the ice, and I don't think a lot of people are either. They're coming off a 2-1 loss to the Flyers. Yet another game where the Canucks offense just completely craps the bed. Let's call it like it is. They were not good enough. They were not, again, another case of the Canucks not being good enough and not playing up to their standard. And that's kind of the most frustrating thing about all this. And especially as somebody personally who went to the game. I went to the game. I got a free ticket for the game. I am currently wearing my new favorite T-shirt, which, if you're watching the YouTube version, you can kind of see behind the microphone and the microphone here. A Canucks comic book cover T-shirt to match their new amazing intro that we talked about earlier this week. I was at this game as a technically as a paying customer, of course, as somebody not doing media, but also of course, again, I gotten the ticket from a friend. So it was one of those kinds of games where I was going into it, where I'm not necessarily like worried about the value I'm getting for my ticket. But for the rest of the building, the people who were there, who had paid for a ticket to be there, I have to imagine they walked out disappointed and felt like they did not get their money's worth in that game for a variety of reasons. First of which being the fact that, look, the Canucks didn't play well enough. The shots on goal might tell you a pretty decent story, like 28-28, both teams finishing with the same amount of opportunities. But the 2-1, that 2-1 score, the 2-1 Flyers win is not a case of, say, the Canucks playing great defense. It's not a case of them, it's not a case of necessarily a red-hot goaltender. Jaro Halak in net, he played admirably. A very shaky start, letting in the very first goal of the game, but we're going to talk about why that's not really his fault in a second. But overall, by the end of the game, he was completely holding the minute. He very much gave them an opportunity to win that game. But the offense sputtered. They couldn't do anything. And it wasn't for a case of the Flyers being too good in their own end. The Canucks just could not make anything happen. They were getting some chances, but they weren't getting nearly enough. And again, the Flyers were not playing necessarily great. Like, they weren't playing this incredible game that can't be beat by any stretch. And they're a team coming off of having played the night before against the Edmonton Oilers and winning that game against a much tougher Oilers team with McDavid, Draisaitl, Zach Hyman. They're coming in tired. They're going to be gassed. They're coming in from a different time zone, everything. They've been on the road for a while, and they're playing their backup goaltender in Martin Jones, goaltender who notoriously has hit a bit of a slump in San Jose. And the Canucks had every opportunity to win that game. The Flyers score the opening goal, and this is where I get to bring in my own personal viewing experience from the game. I had a pretty good seat. I was sitting on the end of the end zone, right behind Jones for 2 periods. So the Canucks were shooting on my end twice. And I remember watching the opening phase, like I guess the second face off of the game, like 15 seconds after the game starts, or like 5 seconds after the game starts, the puck goes into the glass. They restart from center and do it again. The Canucks get entry into the zone and they dump the puck in. And immediately everything goes wrong because you see, specifically, it starts with Tyler Myers. We're looking at a defense that's not playing their best players, like, or not necessarily playing, their strongest lineup, with Jack Rathbone healthy, scratched, instead opting to go with Brad Hunt and Kyle Burrows instead of him, and of course, and the potentially injured Tucker Pullman. Tucker Pullman, who has also not been very good at all to start the year. And Tyler Myers, the veteran defenseman, makes a massive error, makes a completely unnecessary and unforced error. He pinches as the puck is coming to the boards, and with nobody around the flyer who has the puck. I believe it's Claude Giroux, if I remember correctly. And yeah, there's nobody there, but there are two flyers skating up towards back towards the blue line. Myers pinches, and the puck and Giroux immediately flips the puck to Travis Konechny, who starts streaking, and suddenly it's a 2-on-1. With Oliver Ekman-Larsson, the only defenseman back, Bo Horvat trying to chase to get back in time to Sean Couturier. OEL does, I guess, what is the best possible thing he can do in that case to prevent a breakaway, where he attacks the puck carrier in Konechny, but that leaves Couturier wide open for the pass, and he just drills it past Jaro Halak, who has to slide across and just can't get. And it's a little bit of a shot that he probably could have, but at the same time, it's definitely, yeah, it's a shot that Halak could have for sure. But at the same time, that play does not happen if Tyler Myers does the responsible thing and does not pinch on that play. There is no reason for him to make that play. Absolutely zero reason. And he makes the lowest IQ decision to attack the puck carrier with no backup available to him. Nobody who can take his spot on the blue line, because that's the key, right? When you're a defenseman, if you're going to pinch, you have to be sure, either 100% sure you're going to get the puck, or you have to make sure that there is a player available to take a forward available to move up and take your spot on the blue line in case it goes wrong. Tyler Myers makes neither of those checks and balances, and it immediately costs them and puts them in a hole 30 seconds into the game. And it's completely his fault. It's completely his fault. And when you're hurting as much as you are on that right side for solid, stable defense, you need Tyler Myers to be able to do that, and he did not. He immediately proved why he can't be trusted on that. And from there, the Canucks just kind of it took the starch out of the game. It completely took any sort of, I think, energy the Canucks might have had. But even still, they got the tying goal. Quinn Hughes with a good shot through that beats Jones. It looks like it's going to end up being like a high scoring game. I was saying to my friend who I was there with, I was like, this game's going to end up like 9-8. It spoiler alert, it really didn't. It's the same things that have been haunting the Canucks all year coming to roost. This has been the one thing that the Canucks can, I guess, if you want to look at like a bright side, take out of it. They're not making a lot of new mistakes per se, which is, I guess, a win here. But the problem is that the mistakes that they've been making all season, they can't shake. The penalty kill being one of them. They cannot buy a solid kill on the power play. They had one good PK kill that I actually quite liked, where they were passing the puck around, killing a lot of clock. And they looked pretty good on that. But overall, I'm watching them during penalty kills and just seeing them stand still. They're not moving. They're not attacking the puck carrier. They're not trying to force a quick pass that goes wrong. They're not doing enough. They're very much just trying to stand there and be a wall, and it's not working. It isn't working for them at all, because they're exposing a bunch of holes and a bunch of shots and passing lanes that, if they're playing a more fluid defense on those penalty kills, they would be covering up. They'd be sealing those cracks in the armor. And sure enough, as soon as Quinn Hughes goes to the box he had a bit of a tough night as well, Quinn Hughes, in terms of the penalties and discipline. Yeah, it immediately cost them with James Van Riemsdyk being left wide open in front of Jarl Halak, and he puts it in past Sean Couturier. Sean Couturier is the one who feeds him the pass from the corner, and he's just wide open. It's just a tap in for him at that point. And I'm watching the Canucks for the rest of the game. I'm thinking, okay, they're not that far behind. This is a game that you can get. This is a game that is very winnable, much like the Minnesota game. It's totally winnable. They just have to get pucks on net, which I know is a cliche. I don't know. It's also It's also another podcast in Vancouver. Include two of their hosts, of which I got to say hello to last night. Shout out to Arash and Ryan. But the Canucks do not get enough just like again like garbage goal shots on net. They're a team that often looks far too much for the perfect shot. The one that would potentially end up on like the NHL top 10 or like the Sports Center top 10 at the end of the night kind of thing. They never seem to be able to find those, like, I guess the dirty goals, the ones that are just it's a hard shot right into the goalie's pads, kicks out a rebound. They just hack and whack at the puck until it eventually trickles in. They have not been able to get a lot of goals like that. It's always a clean shot. It's almost always a clean shot or a deflection through a sea of skates kind of thing. They're not getting enough of those shots in close, of those second, third chances in close. And I think it's costing them. They're getting opportunities. Like they're getting some shots. They're hitting the post a lot. There were a couple plays where Brock Besser in particular, he had some very good looks in that game. He was one of the I think the best Canuck forwards in that game. He got a few good clean looks. He was making things happen. He was playing with confidence. That was a guy playing with confidence. And even still, he could not buy a goal. He had one that I think beat Jones pretty cleanly and just hit the corner of the post in the crossbar, and it just stayed out. And that was a tough break for him. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Canucks Flyers game in a second, but first, I need to talk to you about our sponsor today, Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, and they have so many delicious flavors for you to try. If you haven't talked to any Built Bar fans recently, they are passionate about their favorites, including Cherry Barcia, orange, cookies and cream, and salted caramel. And if you haven't tried all their flavors, you can get a mixed box where you'll get 2 of each of their 9 flavors. Not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're healthy too, ranging from only 4 to 5 grams of sugar per bar and only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs per bar. They're all amazing flavors, they're all tasty, and they're all healthy for you. I'm somebody that snacks quite a bit during the day. I know Built Bar is helpful for making sure that I'm not packing in too much sugar into my diet, especially as somebody who eats probably a little more sugar than he should. Order today, and you can even get their grasshopper cookie flavor just by going to built.com and using the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off of your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. One last thing we should talk about before we call it on the Flyers segment of today's show is again, it's Elias Pettersson. It has been a really tough year, a tough start to the year for Elias Pettersson. There's no doubt about it. And last night I got a front row seat to a guy who is playing very frustrated. And it's hard to watch because you can see obviously what kind of talent Elias Pettersson has whenever he has the puck. You can see the kind of capabilities he has and the skill on display. And for whatever reason, he just can't get the finish. He can't get the finish. Last night, I saw an improvement from him in terms of him getting the passes off, getting the shots off. Because there's been a lot of hesitation on his part in recent games to take the final shot, especially on like the power play and whatnot. But last night, I was seeing him actually get his chances. There were a couple times where I think he whiffed on a couple shots, and it was just like, oh, if he's playing with a little more confidence, he gets there. And there was the opportunities were just not the opportunities he were getting were just not the kind that you're used to seeing him kind of whiff on or struggle with. And it was hard to watch at times. And in particular, late in the game, I remember watching on the power play, he he had a missed opportunity in the third period. The Flyers are Sean Couturier is skating the puck back towards the Canucks zone to try and kill more time on the power play for Vancouver, and Pettersson gets there and he grabs him. He like full on grabs him. I see it coming from a mile away. I'm literally in my seat going, "Nope, no, 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 let go, let go." I'm like yelling at him from the glass. I'm like, I can see the penalty coming. Sure enough, the referee's arm goes up, and and that's it. Power play gone. Power play killed. Uh, and going to 4-on-4, and that was a play in particular where that Elias Pettersson only makes because he's frustrated. That is that is the type of penalty a frustrated hockey player takes. It's the kind you see from, say, like Connor McDavid last year. There was the one play where you just saw where a guy who's normally a pretty clean hockey player just straight on puts his elbow into a guy's helmet, into a guy's head. I believe it was a Winnipeg Jet player. He just elbowed in the head mid-game. Normally is not Connor McDavid's thing to do. And that was because he was frustrated with a lack of calls. He was frustrated with whatever else was going on at the time. And for Pettersson, it's a bit of a different story. This is a guy who's frustrated because he can't seem to buy the points that he normally is capable of. And it's not a case of him not trying. It's not a case of him suddenly not being good anymore. It's a case of, for whatever reason, he is having just a hard time, and he's in his own head a little bit. There's a little bit, he's in his own head, and the chances he's getting, for some reason, they're just not hitting the way that they normally do. And it all comes out at that end there, right in that third period, with that one mistake of a penalty on Sean Couturier. And I don't, it's one of those cases where, again, I don't know what to really say about it, right? It's not like he's playing particularly poorly. Like, again, I'm not seeing him make a lot of mistakes necessarily. It's not like he's costing the team goals against by any stretch. He's had a couple games where his line has been getting hemmed in their own zone for long periods of time. But I'm not like actively seeing him make egregious errors that end up winding up in the back of the net. It's very much a case of, with a player as good as he is, where you're kind of like, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what is going to fix this, other than, say, that first goal going in. Sometimes that's really all it is. Sometimes it really is just about getting the monkey off your back, getting the one shot to go in, no matter how lousy a goal it is, even if it's just you whacking in a rebound after somebody else's shot. Like, sometimes that's just enough to kind of go, okay, the pressure's off. I have a point, and then you're able to play with a little bit less of that pressure on top of you. You hope Pettersson's able to find it quick, because, again, the Canucks offense is sputtering quite a bit, and that goes for everybody. That's not just a case of Pettersson. It's not solely him. It's not solely on him. Basically every player on the ice, with the exception of maybe a few guys like Connor Garland, Bo Horvat, Tanner Pearson, and Quinn Hughes, are kind of like are struggling to make any sort of plays happen. And right now I don't really know what to tell the Canucks in that case, because there's no magic recipe really to this. It's not like they're very much clearly capable of much more. And you hope that they're able to find it sooner rather than later, because, in this league, you dig yourself into a hole, it's very hard to get back out of it. So, yeah, and with about, I believe, 5 more games left on this homestand, there's lots of time for you to build up a whole bunch of points into a lead, and it's just a matter of finding ways to build that confidence back and get back to playing the hockey that you're capable of. We're going to talk a little bit about and preview the Canucks Oilers game tomorrow night. But first, a little word from BetOnline.ag. We're back in better than ever, a new web interface for the start of the basketball season, with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head over to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus. That's 50 on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, baseball postseason, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. And finally, we finish up with a little bit about Canucks Oilers. I think we previewed quite a bit, obviously, of what the Canucks need to do to win against any team, Edmonton in particular, of late. But I do think we need to talk a little bit about the discrepancies between these two teams right now. Because look, the Canucks have played 8 games. The Oilers have played 6. The despite having played 2 more games, the Canucks are 2 wins behind Edmonton. Edmonton is 5-1. The Canucks are 3-4-1. It has gone south very quick for Vancouver. And you look at maybe this is an unfair comparison, but I'm looking at the leaders, like the team leaders in certain point and goal totals and whatnot. For and obviously the Canucks are very much a team that is much more of a scoring by committee group than the Edmonton Oilers are. But I'm just looking at the fact of right now, Connor Garland has the most points on the Canucks with 5, and Connor McDavid leads the Oilers in points with 13. And again, Connor McDavid is clearly the best hockey player in the world. This is very clearly an unfair comparison here, but God, I'm just looking at the fact of even Ryan Nugent-Hopkins has 9 assists. The Canucks leader is JT Miller with 4. It's the kind of case where the Canucks just are going to be going up against a team that is, despite having lost their last game also to the Flyers, they're coming in riding as high confidence-wise as they possibly can. This Oilers team has not been this good in a very, very, very long time. This is an actual playoff potential cup contender, depending on how good their goaltending stays for the rest of the year. This is a real legitimate Stanley Cup contender, quite possibly. If they continue, at least if they continue on this trend that they're on. And again, with the Oilers, it's entirely possible that it falls apart in seconds flat. But for now, they're doing pretty darn well. As I think we say basically every time the Canucks play the Oilers, there is one key to winning. There is one key to beating the Oilers, and that is you have to stay out of the penalty box. You cannot take penalties against the Oilers. They have the best power play in the league for very obvious reasons. When you have the opportunity to put Draisaitl, McDavid, Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins, and Tyson Barrie all on one unit, it is absolute murderer's row. You cannot take penalties and get caught sitting in the box at any point during this game. If the Canucks need to play as disciplined a hockey game as they've ever played against this team, it is going to be their key to success if they want to win. Obviously, they need another stellar performance, probably from Thatcher Demko, who's going to likely start that game. And they need to be able to, again, find their confidence in their forwards. Their forwards need to find the ability to score at the rate that we know that they're absolutely capable of. You just hope that they can find that success now, because again, the later into the season you get, the harder it is to build that confidence back. I think the Canucks are capable of it. I don't think that I think their odds on winning are better than people would imagine. I think the opportunity is there to surprise some people, including themselves. They just need to find the confidence, find the ability to play the team game that they're most capable of, and using that to their advantage against a very top-heavy Oilers team. And with that, this episode of Locked On Canucks comes to a close. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to check out, for your second listen of the day, Locked On Fantasy Hockey. The host Scott Cullen leans on his decades of fantasy hockey insight and experience every day to help you be the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available on all platforms. My name is Lachlan Irvin. You can follow me on Twitter at Lock at the Crease. You can also check out my writing work at CanucksArmy.com. And you can check out my other podcast, The Creasecast, which I host with Cody Sievertson every Monday and Thursday. With that in mind, thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back on Monday with a brand new episode for you. Enjoy your weekend.